Hi everyone, in the next 20 minutes, I am going to show you all of the equipment that you need to get started with your very first podcast. Good morning, you are listening to FBP Live episode 15. Episode 15, I had to double check because I've got it written down there. So good morning, it looks like we've got a slightly delayed broadcast at the moment. So let's just see how we go this morning. I'm Chantal Broderick, host of the Fitness Business Podcast. And yes, you are listening to FBP Live. Now, if you've been tuning in, good morning, Patrick, JT, and Donna. Hey, welcome. Thank you so much for jumping on today. Donna, I'm glad that you found us. I got your message and I was just hitting the live button as I received your message. So guys, as you may very well know, because I know that quite a few of you have been tuning in over the last couple of weeks, so we are now into week 4 of our series on how to start your very own podcast. Now, if you have missed any of the previous weeks, so weeks 1, 2, or 3, just very, very quickly, week 1, we talked about why you should start your own podcast. Week 2, we talked about finding your topic or planning your topic. And week 3, we talked about, which was live from San Diego Zoo, by the way, creating your avatar. So they were the first 3 weeks. If you missed out on any of those, just pop the numbers 1, 2, or 3, or all of those numbers in the comments below, and I'll make sure that I send you through a link for those previous shows. Now, we're of course up to week 4, and today we're talking about the equipment that you need to get started. This is this could be a 2-hour show if I wanted to, because there is actually so many options out there when it comes to equipment. It's quite mind-blowing. But to be completely honest with you guys, I am not a technical person. So my objective in putting together the information in today's show was to keep it as simple as I possibly could. I want to give you the foundations. I want to give you the basics for getting up and running. Hey, Deb, thank you. It was great to see you last week. Thanks for tuning in. So we're going to be covering off the equipment that you need, the absolute essentials that you need to get up and running. It's really important that you remember this. You do not need to spend a fortune to start podcasting. You can actually start podcasting on a really low budget. What is more important than the quality of the equipment that you use when you're getting up and running is actually the content that you're providing and knowing your market, knowing your topic and your audience. So that's first and foremost. And that goes back to those first 3 episodes that we did. Yes, it's fantastic to have a really good quality microphone and great software to use, but I just want you to remember that there are plenty of options out there. And what I'm going to show you today is kind of like your stepping stone into getting into podcasting. So let's crack straight into it. Now, I'm going to ask you guys a question. Those of you that are watching live at the moment, is the broadcast clear, or am I jumping around the screen? Because when I'm looking at it, I'm kind of moving around the screen quite a little bit, and it's a little bit distracting. So if you could comment in there for me, I'd be really appreciative. And just let me know if it's loud, clear, if you can hear me. Clear for you, Patrick, thank you. Is the vision clear? Hey, Tim, thanks for joining us. Clear, no movement, good. Okay, so it's just me then. It's just my Mac, which I'm about to get rid of. Okay, guys, so the 3 key areas I want to cover off today. Number 1 is microphones. Number 2, very briefly, is headphones, and then recording and editing. The reason I've broken up this series into such small chunks is because really, if I go into any more detail today than just those 3 areas, we're going to be here for a lot longer than 15, 20 minutes. So let's go in. So the first thing I want to tell you is, when it comes to utilizing a microphone, I've actually trialed quite a few over the time that I've been podcasting, and there's one in particular that I have landed on, and it's also one that many full-time podcasters also use, or professional podcasters also use. That particular microphone is called the Blue Yeti, and I'm actually going to grab it right now and show it to you. It sits on a really great stand. This is the microphone that I use. Okay, hopefully you can see that. At the moment, it has got a few fingerprint marks on it, but that's normal for me. And it sits on a pretty cool little stand. Let me go. There we go. Okay. So it's got a really heavy bass to it. Now, the reason that I love this microphone is a couple of reasons. First of all, the bass is really handy because when I'm recording, it's stable. I don't need to clip it onto anything. I don't need to move it around with anything. It's also got this kind of full circle. So in other words, I can speak directly into it, or I can have a guest sitting with me if need be, even though most of my guests are actually on Zoom. But it's really handy microphone to have. The audio quality is amazing. As soon as I switched to this mic, you can actually hear the difference in the shows that we had previously, or we had a different mic previously, to using this particular one. So in the comments right now, hey Kate, thank you for jumping on. I'm actually just going to stick, let's see if this lets me, or I might have to come back to it later. What I'll do later, guys, is in the comments, I'm going to put a photo of this microphone that I'm recommending to you, and I'm going to put a link in there. Now, to give you a bit of an idea cost-wise, I had a look on Amazon this morning, and this particular microphone retails at about $120 US. Okay, so it's not a crazy amount. You can absolutely buy less expensive ones, but I'm just copying a link for you guys right now. But as I said, like, this is just a really great quality mic, and I use it for all of the broadcasting that I do. So from a mic perspective, I recommend that one. Now, if you're looking for something that is, I apologize that I keep looking down, but I'm just double checking. If you're looking for something that's a little bit less expensive, but still a really great quality, then there's a microphone that's called Technica ATH 2100 USB mic. It's a handheld mic, so it's a bit different to this one that I just showed you, which is actually like a desk mount one, but it retails for around $70 US. So you can see there's a little bit of difference in the price on that particular one. And again, I'm going to copy and paste this. If you guys just follow on in the notes, in the comments down the right-hand side, you'll see that I'm just posting the links here for those microphones. So I'm giving you 3 different options. One, which is middle of the range, which is the one that I use. One, which is less expensive, the one that I've just posted. And the third one is definitely the gold standard microphone, and it's called the Heil Sound PR40. Now we're looking at around $330 US for this particular one, and it is recommended by a lot of the top podcasters. But again, I'll go back to what I said right at the very beginning, and that is, you do not have to spend a fortune to get up and running with your podcast. So I've specifically suggested or given you the example of mine because, as I said, we're talking about like $120 US. It's not a crazy amount of money, and it's an amazing sound quality. So that's a really good one. So guys, in the comments down the right-hand side, you've got all of the links now for each of those microphones. I'm only giving you 3, otherwise it'd be totally overwhelming. So maybe give me a little love heart if you love the sound of those. If one of those sounds like it will work for you, for what you're working on at the moment, I hope that they are of use. Let's keep going. Okay, so the next one is headphones. Now, here's something really interesting. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I actually don't use headphones. It's just been a personal preference of mine. I just haven't used them to record the show so far. It may very well be something that I change soon. I personally, in my experience, feel like you don't necessarily need them when you're just getting started, but probably after you've been podcasting for a little while, which I have, it's a good idea to grab yourself a pair of decent headphones. So I do have a couple of recommendations for you guys when it comes to headphones, because if you do want to grab some to get started, hey Brett, thanks for joining me. If you do want to grab some headphones to get started, then I'm going to give you one particular recommendation, which is again one that's used by a lot of podcasters, and they're called the Technica ATH M50X. Wow. This is why I'm not technical. The names of these products alone are complicated. Now, this particular set of headphones retails for around $150 US. You can buy them on Amazon. I'm going to put the link in the show notes, so if you want to check them out, you can. Of course, if you've got an existing pair of headphones that you use for other things, you may be a gamer or anything else like that, then by all means, you just give those a go and you can get started. But if you want a good pair of podcasting headphones, then check out the ones that I just popped in the notes, in the comments section just there. And by the way, If I've got anyone who is tuning into this, whether it be live or if you're watching the recording later on, and if you personally are either a podcaster or if you are into tech gear and you've got something that you really love that you use, then put that in the comments too, because I would love to hear what you guys are using and what works for you. I'm just sharing what works for me and some of the most commonly used pieces of equipment in podcasting world. So let's keep moving. Now, recording and editing. So here's the thing, when it comes to actually recording and editing, I separate the two. You can very well do them in one particular function, but personally what I do is I record on one piece of software and then I outsource the editing of the show. It's a little bit of it's not a cheap way to do it, but for me, for someone who is not naturally technically inclined, it just works incredibly well for me to be able to take the recording and send it off to our amazing audio engineer, who I'm going to talk to you about in just a second. Now, if you're a little bit more technical than me, then I'm also going to share with you some of the software that you can use to both record and edit your podcast. So when it comes to our show, I started off recording on Skype ECAM, which is a call recorder software. It's not expensive. It's about $40 as a one-off price. You buy it up front and then you can use it forever. That was a really good piece of software to use. However, there's a couple of catches. It's specifically for Mac. So it's specifically for Mac users, and also you're using it in conjunction with Skype. Now, we probably recorded on Skype, I'd say, for the first 2.5 years of the current show. So all of the guest recordings were done on Skype, all the guest interviews, I should say, and it worked pretty well most of the time. Then about 8 months ago, we decided to trial Zoom. And I think as I'm doing this recording today in March of 2018, most of you will know what Zoom is. Maybe give me a little like or a little love heart if you know or use or love Zoom. Now, we went onto Zoom as a bit of an experiment to see if it was any better with recording than what Skype was. I have had fantastic experience with Zoom. It's really reliable. I now conduct pretty much all of my meetings, my interviews, any type of group webinar, all through Zoom. And no, I'm not on commission for them. I'm just telling you what really works for us. So what we do with Zoom is actually use the call recorder or the video recorder that's built into the system already. Unlike the Skype ECAM that I mentioned before, it's not a one-off fee, it's actually a monthly subscription fee. So it is as low as $0 a month. You can start on the free version of Zoom, and I do recommend that you trial it out up until I think $19.95, so $19.95 per month. For your kind of deluxe subscription, and there's one that sits in the middle, which is around the $14 mark. So it's really, really handy. You can do actually a lot on the free version. There's a lot you can do. It kind of restricts things, like if you go over a 40-minute call with a group of people, then it will, it's restrictive, you need to upgrade. But generally, most of the time, the free version works incredibly well. So that's Zoom, and let me just scroll down my page because I'm going to send you guys the link for Zoom if you haven't already done that. And I can see, I think that JT has just beat me to the punch, and he has put the Zoom link in there. Thank you, JT. So you've got that there. So Zoom, as far as recording goes, so if you think about this in two different sections, as I said to you, so I record over here. I do the guest interview. I do all of my voiceovers for the ads, for our podcast partners, for the introduction and the outro. And then I actually load all of those individual files into Dropbox. And then we have a wonderful, amazing audio engineer who we've worked with for about 3 years now. And his name is Harper Harris, and he runs a company called Harper Harris Audio Engineering. And I'm giving you guys some gold here right now, because if you are like me and you don't want to do the technical stuff and the editing, then outsource it. And I'm going to put Harper's contact details in the comments, so that if that is the direction that you want to take with your podcast, then have a chat to him about getting him to help you out with your editing. Now, if you're on the flip side and you're actually cool to do a little bit of editing yourself, then here's the options that you've got. So this will allow you to both record and edit. The first one is one that's been around for a very long time, and this is for Mac users, and that is GarageBand. GarageBand is used by a lot of podcasters, and neither of these software options are necessarily complicated. It really comes down to how much time you've got, how much technical knowledge or how deep dive you want to get into it. And as I said, if you want to do this yourself in order to keep your budget low, then by all means go for these options. So GarageBand is one of them, and that's for Mac only, but the other one is Audacity. And Audacity, again, is free for Mac and for PC. Both of those software and editing packages are free of charge. So I'm going to put those in the links right now. Let me put Harper's in first. And in the meantime, if you guys have got any questions, make sure you shout out at me, because I loved all of the comments that I got last week. And I'm sorry that this week's background is nowhere near as exciting as the monkeys that I had behind me at San Diego Zoo last week, because that was pretty cool. Okay, here's those links coming your way right now. So guys, what I'm not going to go into today, I'm going to do it in another show because otherwise it'll be too long, is actually the process of once you've recorded and once you've edited your show, so once you've used all of this equipment that we've just talked about, the next step to that is actually uploading the show onto your podcast player. We use a platform called Libsyn, which is one of the most commonly used podcast platforms. There are other options out there. So I'm going to do a full show just on the process of uploading your podcast onto the podcast player, which is the gateway or the bridge, if you like, from getting the podcast in your hot little hands and getting it into the ears of your listeners all across the world. So that's going to be a really important show that's coming up in a couple of weeks' time. So just to quickly recap, if you're just joining us now, we have talked through today microphones, a headphone, your recording and editing software. And once again, I've kind of narrowed everything down, because if you go away today and you Google what microphone should I use for podcasting, there will be about 200 options pop up. Okay, if you Google what headset I should use for podcasting, there will be about 200 options pop up. So I've really gone through all of these, simplified them, and chosen A, the gear that I use, and B, the most recommended gear. So if you missed any of those, go back. I've put all of the links in the comments box for today. So I hope you find that useful, and I'm really happy to chat to you guys if you've got any questions about any of that equipment. Now, next week, we're going to be talking about actually planning your show. And you might recall from back at episode 1 of this particular series, I mentioned that systems and planning are absolutely vital. They're instrumental to the success of your podcast. So that is, how do you plan forward? How do you decide what content you're going to use? So I'm going to take you through some of the steps that I use to actually plan our shows in advance. So I hope that has been another useful episode for you guys. As I mentioned, please make sure that you comment and let me know, A, if you're enjoying the series, if this is helpful. B, I want to know if you are starting your own podcast, what you decided to do as far as your topic is concerned, if you did the homework from the Avatar show and you actually went through and identified who your ideal customer is. Please let me know, because I want to know if you're using this content, if it's being useful to you. And the other thing is if you, obviously I've done this specifically for the fitness industry, but if you've got friends who might have mentioned that they want to podcast, then please make sure that you share the show with them as well, even if they're not in fitness. So that is it. One more thing before I go, and that is this week's show has just gone live. And it's amazing. And I'm not just saying that. So this week's special guest is Peter Docker. He's the co-author of a new book that is called Find Your Why. Now, maybe give me a little thumbs up or a little love heart if you know the Simon Sinek book called Start. with why. I am convinced that everyone knows this book, or you've read this book, or you've heard about it, or you've watched his TED Talk. So give me a little love heart if that sounds familiar to you. Now, Find Your Why is the follow-up book to Start With Why. And it was co-authored with Peter Docker and Simon Sinek and one other author. And Peter came on and spoke to me about how you can actually go about finding your why from an individual perspective and from a group perspective. So for your team, for your organization. So we talk through that in this week's show. So that is show 160 on the Fitness Business Podcast. It is live right now on the website and on iTunes. So please check that out and let me know what you think about this week's show. That's it from me for today. Please make sure you leave your comments, and I look forward to seeing you next week when we talk about the process and planning your podcast. Thanks for tuning in, guys.